the headlines, North Korea accepts Seoul's offer for talks over reunions of families separated by the Korean War. The two sides will meet on Friday to iron out details for the event, the first in nearly 3 years. The global stocks tumbled on this Thursday as the U.S. Federal Reserve's latest minutes suggest a stimulus phase-out is coming. We'll look at how the Fed's movement is affecting emerging markets as well as the Korean economy. Plus, horrifying news out of Syria. Opposition sources claim that Bashar al-Assad's regime used chemical weapons on rebel strongholds outside Damascus, killing more than 1,400 people. The Assad government denies the allegations. But these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Thursday, August 22nd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. For families still living on opposite sides of the border in North and South Korea, tomorrow's talks to resume reunions offers hopes for one last meeting.
North Korea agreed to meet on the South Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom for the discussions. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee has the details on what to look forward to from tomorrow's dialogue.
North Korea has accepted South Korea's offer to meet at Panmunjom on Friday for Red Cross talks on resuming reunions for families separated since the Korean War. The two had been at odds over the venue for days, with the North pushing to hold the talks at its Mount Kumgang resort and the South wanting to meet on the South Korean side of Panmunjom.
North Korea has agreed to our proposal through the Inter-Korean hotline to hold Red Cross talks on the South Korean side of Panmunjom tomorrow on the resumption of reunions for divided families.
From 10 a.m. on Friday, the three-member delegations from the two sides will discuss the scale and site of the reunions. Some possible locations for the meeting are Mount Kumgang, Seoul, and Pyongyang. South Korea's Unification Ministry said it will put a priority on reuniting as many aging family members as possible, since more than 80% of the 73,000 registered separated family members in the South are over the age of 70. For now, Seoul is aiming to hold the reunions sometime around the middle of next month to coincide with Chuseok, the Korean Thanksgiving holiday. If they do take place, the reunions would be the first such meetings in 3 years. North Korea also made a counterproposal to Seoul's offer to hold talks on reopening the Mount Kumgang resort to South Korean tourists on September 25th. Saying that the issue cannot wait that long, the North proposed to meet at the end of this month or the beginning of September. South Korean tours to the Mount Kumgang resort came to an abrupt end in 2008 after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean guard. However, Seoul said it will have to thoroughly review North Korea's latest proposal before giving an answer. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The South Korean businessmen operating firms in the joint factory zone in Kaesong crossed over into North Korea on Thursday to visit their facilities for the first time in nearly 5 months.
More than 250 people, including government officials, crossed the military demarcation line on Thursday morning, spent the day inspecting their factories, and returned to the south at around 5 p.m. An additional group of businessmen are scheduled to visit on Friday. Starting Monday, they will begin maintenance and checkups on their machinery equipment. The visits follow last week's agreement between the two Koreas to restart the factory zone. The nuclear envoys of South Korea and Japan met in Seoul on Thursday for discussions over the long-stalled six-party denuclearization talks.
South Korea's chief envoy Cho Tae-yong and his Japanese counterpart Ihara Junichi evaluated the recent progress made in inter-Korean relations and discussed ways to counter North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Calling each other very important neighbors, they agreed that the six-party talks are one of the areas in which Seoul and Tokyo must work together, in which they have already displayed a lot of cooperation. The multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, China, the United States, Japan, and Russia, has been dormant since December 2008. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon arrived in Korea this Thursday afternoon for a 6-day visit.
During his stay, Ban will meet with President Park Geun-hye, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won, and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and discuss pending global issues concerning the Korean Peninsula and human rights. He's also scheduled to make a keynote speech at the opening ceremony of the 2013 World Rowing Championships in Chungju, North Chungcheong Province on Saturday. Ban will then attend the post-2015 Korea Forum hosted by the Foreign Ministry on Monday and lay out his vision for the UN's Millennium Development Goals, which are a top priority during his second term in office. Turning over to the global economy, investors had been hoping for some strong hints about when the U.S. Federal Reserve was planning to start reining in its monetary easing program.
But as our Yudian reports, a Fed's Open Market Committee was not forthcoming, sending jitters through the U.S. market.
The Federal Reserve has offered few hints on its timeline for tapering off its massive monetary stimulus program. The minutes of the July 30th to 31st meeting released on Wednesday showed most of the 12 members on the Federal Open Market Committee agreed that a change to the stimulus was not yet appropriate. Investors have been eager to find out when the Fed will start winding down its $85 billion in monthly asset purchases. Many expect it will begin September. While the details of the minutes provided few clues as to when it will begin, it did little to dissuade expectations.
Consensus among officials is that the economy is going to improve in the second half of this year as fiscal restraint wanes, consumer confidence has risen, and employment gains have moved to about a 200,000 average, what they're expecting to see, with confidence that it's going to continue going forward. So that is consistent with their view that they should dial back a bit on the near-term stimulus.
The uncertainty about the Fed's intentions has rocked global markets over the past few months, especially when Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke announced in June plans to start scaling back the quantitative easing measures later this year and end it completely by mid-2014. After the release of the minutes, market movement reflected the uncertainty, with major indexes fluctuating in the final hours of trading. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.7%, while the S&P 500 fell 0.6% on Wednesday. The Fed will meet again on September 17th for a 2-day meeting, which will be followed by a press conference by Bernanke. Yudian, Arirang News.
As the markets worry that the U.S. Fed will begin unwinding its unconventional monetary policy, some emerging markets such as India, Indonesia, and Thailand are experiencing a large and rapid capital outflows and depreciation of their currencies.
For more on the volatile market action and its potential effect on the Korean economy, we bring in Dr. Yang Chun-seok, professor of economics at the Catholic University, in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Yang, why are foreign investors taking their money out from the emerging markets?
Well, the most obvious reason is that if the Fed stops the quantitative easing, they expect the long-run interest rate to rise. So putting the money back in the U.S. will mean higher returns for them and safer than putting it in India. But the factor I want to emphasize is, well, you're a foreign investor. You've invested money in India. You're fairly confident that India will do well, but you keep on hearing all these rumors. So what's the rational thing for you to do? Well, if the capital flows are open, take the money out for now, park it in the U.S. safely, and then if the thing dies down, put it back in.
So, yeah, that leads us to the next question. Is this a overreaction and a temporary situation, or is there a real fundamental underlying, real economic reason for this type of behavior?
Well, the Indian economy is not doing well. But if you look at the numbers, while it's not doing well, typically it's not enough to start a foreign exchange rate crisis. Now, what's really important, though, I think, is that even if the economy is fundamentally sound, expectations, people's fears, can bring about a financial crisis. For example, everything is going well, but you keep hearing these rumors about the market collapsing. then what would you do? Well, you would want to take your money out of India and put it in dollars, not just the foreign investors, but also domestic Indians. And once that happens, even if the numbers seem to be sound, if people believe in the rumors, that'll start a financial crisis.
Here's a fundamental question. Why is quantitative easing so potentially harmful for emerging economies?
Well, they didn't complain about it when they were getting all the good effects from it. When the quantitative easing happened and the interest rate fell, there were a lot of investors who were looking for higher returns, and that attracted them to emerging markets. So about nearly $2 trillion flowed into Asian economies, except for Japan. About $600 billion flowed into South America. About $400 billion flowed into East Europe. And now that interest rate seems to be going back up in the United States so that they will have higher returns that are safe, they're just pulling the money back out. So nobody was complaining when the money went in, but now that it's going out, everybody's worried.
Well, Korea's finance minister this week said that the effects of this whole situation on Korea would be quite limited. Would you agree with that, or do you think Korea has a lot to do to prepare for any kind of shock?
If you look at just the numbers, then we are actually in a very good shape. Of course, our growth rate is not as high as we want it to be, but still, our growth rate is not bad compared to a lot of advanced countries. What we own abroad minus what we owe abroad is plus $323 billion. So at least on paper, we can pay back all we owe in the short term and still have a lot left over. Also, our foreign exchange reserves is $329 billion. So again, that's enough to actually pay all our short-run debt. And our ratio of short-run to long-run external debt is lower than it's ever been. So we're actually in a fairly safe place if we look only at the numbers. But as I mentioned before, a lot of this is expectations game. If enough Koreans believe the rumors, believe that we should panic, or believe that there's a real good chance that Korea will be involved in this, they will start to exchange all their won for dollars. So the government has to run a very careful policy. It has to emphasize that Korea is different, Korea is prepared, but also Korea cannot be seen to be panicking. So we need to run that tight area between preparedness and not panicking. And that's actually a very hard path to stay in.
All right. Dr. Arirang, thank you very much for coming in today and for your insight tonight.
Thank you very much.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
In the United States, the latest report less than
unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
meeting came on to news. We're trying to cover up the South.
Opposition forces in Syria have accused the government of ordering a massive chemical weapons attack that killed up to 1,400 people, including many women and children. The UN Security Council convened an emergency meeting calling for clarity on the latest incident. And we must warn you that there are some highly distressing images throughout this report by Connie Lee.
Videos uploaded onto social media sites show people choking and gagging, and rows of bodies laid out after an apparent chemical weapons attack by Syrian government forces. Opposition fighters accuse President Bashar al-Assad's regime of attacking hundreds of people with chemicals near Damascus on Wednesday. Rebels and medics say the death toll could be as high as 1,400, and the numbers are likely to rise, with hundreds more critically wounded all around the area. The UN Security Council held a 2-hour closed-door emergency session on Wednesday, where the council president said there were strong concerns over what really happened. Earlier, spokesperson for UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon stated that the UN chief was shocked with the latest allegations.
The Secretary General reiterates that any use of chemical weapons by any side under any circumstances would violate international law.
The Syrian government admitted to carrying out military operations in that area, but denies any use of chemical arms, saying the allegations were illogical and fabricated.
The general leadership of the army confirms these allegations are completely false and are part of the dirty media war that is led by some countries through the media against Syria.
UN inspectors are currently in Damascus investigating previous allegations of chemical weapons use. And following these latest claims, the White House is calling for unrestricted access to all sites in Syria to thoroughly investigate the alleged use of chemical weapons there. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
China's so-called trial of the century is currently underway. Disgraced politician Bo Xilai faces charges of bribery, corruption, and abuse of power. During his trial on Thursday, Bo, who stands accused of taking around $4 million in bribes from two businessmen, denied the allegations against him. Many expect the former rising political star will be found guilty of all charges and be sentenced to life in prison. Bo's life was turned upside down last year after his wife was found guilty of murdering British businessman Neil Haywood.
And back here in the country, Korea's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor, is in trouble as the company's union members and management failed to reach a compromise on this Thursday over wage and benefit issues. This means at least 2 more days of work stoppages. Arirang's Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Officials from Korea's largest car maker, Hyundai Motor, and its union members sat at the negotiating table on Thursday but failed to narrow their differences. The negotiations came after a partial strike of the labor union over unmet demands for higher wages and fringe benefits. The work stoppages have cost the automaker around $75 million in lost output this week alone, and more work stoppages are planned for Friday and Monday, meaning more losses. At a time when the Korean automaker is losing ground even at home to foreign brands because of free trade deals, experts say Hyundai faces major challenges ahead.
The production shortfall caused by the ongoing labor strike in Hyundai's Korean factories in the first half of this year had a negative impact on the company's exports. With another round of strikes taking place in the second half, the automaker will face difficulties in meeting overseas demand.
Hyundai's data shows that it takes around 30 hours to produce one vehicle in domestic factories, whereas in the U.S. it takes half that. The situation is not all that different in Chinese and Czech factories. In the event of a prolonged work stoppage, Hyundai says that it could raise its output in overseas factories that are already rolling out more than 60% of its automobiles.
If the union members continue to lay down their tools, we have to set up long-term countermeasures to tide us over, like operating overseas factories at full capacity.
Hyundai Motor and its labor union have a long history of conflict, with labor disputes becoming almost an annual event in the past 2 decades. Many say how the company deals with these issues could have a major impact on whether the automaker will be able to keep its competitive edge in the global market. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Korea's multi-purpose satellite, the Arirang 5, is scheduled to be launched in about less than 2 hours' time in Russia, slightly before midnight Korea time. This latest version has a special radar that's capable of observing the Earth's surface no matter the time of the day or the weather conditions. Song Ji-sun reports.
Arirang 5, South Korea's multi-purpose satellite, also known as COMSAT 5, is set to blast off at 8:39 p.m. Thursday night local time from Russia's Yasny launch site, located some 1,800 kilometers southeast of Moscow. The most notable feature of this latest satellite is its SAR, short for synthetic aperture radar, that can observe and photograph the Earth's surface at any time, regardless of weather conditions. Once deployed, the satellite will orbit the Earth at an average altitude of 550 kilometers, monitoring the ocean, the environment, and natural disasters, along with its predecessors, the Arirang 2 and 3 satellites. But the Arirang 5 has a leg up on those that came before it. The previous models aren't able to capture images when it's cloudy or dark, but Arirang 5's SAR makes that possible, meaning scientists will gain access to data that they haven't had before. Arirang 5 will provide high-resolution images as precise as 1 meter resolution. About 15 minutes after takeoff, the satellite will detach from its carrier, and engineers on the ground are expected to make first contact with Arirang 5 6 hours later. From then on, the satellite will be on duty 24 hours a day for the next 5 years, observing and sending data from its orbit. 송지선, Arirang News.
The Pro Amateur Basketball Championships has come to an end and a winner has been crowned.
Stephen Che joins us now in the Sports Center to tell us about the matchup between Korea University and Sangmu. Stephen.
Hey Sean, hey Jie. Both teams were deserving of the top honor, but there could only be one champion, and it was Korea U defeating Sangmu 75-67. It was a back-and-forth affair, and the two teams went into the final quarter tied 56-56. There, Korea U was able to break free with superior play by monster center Lee Jong-hyun, a timely three by Kim Ji-hoo, and a breakthrough layup by Park Jae-hyun for the lead. Lee Jong-hyun put up 21 points and 12 rebounds, being named the MVP of the tournament, which saw yet another amateur team crown the champion. Going overseas to Major League Baseball, Cincinnati star center fielder Chu Shin-soo led the Reds to a 10-7 home victory over the Arizona Diamondbacks and nearly hit for the cycle. The choo-choo train took the D-back pitchers for a ride at the Great American Ballpark, going 4 for 5 at the plate, including a home run, a double, and 2 singles, all the while driving home 3 and scoring 3 times himself. The South Korean will be a free agent at season's end, and with this type of play, he's sure to command top dollar. And coming home for more baseball, let's check out Thursday night's top KBO matchup. The LG Twins and the SK Wyverns squared off in Incheon. The Twins back in second place, the Wyverns looking to stir up the standings. But LG's first in the mix in the second. Yoon Yo-sup singles to bring the runner home from second. Twins up 1-0. Bottom second we go. SK soars back with this solo shot by Lee Jae-won over the right fielder. Ball game tied 1-1. Next inning, the Wyverns' Chung Gun-woo at first base on 4 balls. Then we see Choi Jung with a 2-run shot to center coming here over the center field wall. SK up 3-1. And the Wyverns go on to win this one with final score of 6-1. And looking at the scores from around the league, Hanwha defeats Kia 4-3, Nexon over NC 6-1, and Samsung over Dusan 4-2. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back after midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Let's go over to our Kwon So-ah for the weather forecast. So-ah, what's the latest?
Guys, we finally said goodbye to a whole bunch of heat wave alerts.
I guess we can thank the rain for that.
Yes, of course, and the rain is expected to get pretty heavy at times though, so despite the refreshing part of it, we should be on alert. So let's get straight to the details. The current showers and thunderstorms that we're seeing here and there are caused by instability in the atmosphere, but later on will be affected by low pressure plus the after effect of tropical storm Sami that hit land earlier in China, leading to rain in the central regions late at night before spreading nationwide. Now to continue continue into the morning in and around Seoul, down south until Saturday. And the rain may fall at rates of 50 millimeters per hour, and a total amount of up to 150 millimeters could fall in the north-central regions, parts of Chungcheong province and the south coast, so please be careful. Now, the best part of the rain is, of course, the drop in temperatures. Seoul and Daegu will make it to the low 30s, while Gwangju and Busan fall to the high 20s. And the same goes for Daejeon here on our next chart, while Jeju-Wanut will still be a hot spot. Dokdo and Wonkumgang hit 27 and 25 degrees respectively. Now enjoy the cool rain, everyone, but please be careful too. And I'll see you back here after midnight.
And that's our broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Yuji Hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.